What's the easiest choice you can make? Window instead of middle seat? Picking a vendor who sends a great gift basket? Outsourcing business tasks you hate? What about selling with Shopify? Whether you're selling a little or a lot, Shopify helps you do your thing, however you cha-ching. Shopify is the global commerce platform that helps you sell at every stage of your business. From the launch your online shop stage to the first real-life store stage, all the way to the did we just hit a million orders stage. Shopify's there to help you grow. Whether you're selling scented soap or offering outdoor outfits, Shopify helps you sell. Wherever and whatever you're selling, Shopify's got you covered. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/try. Go to shopify.com/try now to grow your business, no matter what stage you're in. Shopify.com/try.
Hi everyone, I'm Deb Flashenberg. Welcome to Yoga, Birth, Babies, a podcast produced by Prenatal Yoga Center. We will be diving into everything prenatal yoga, birth, and baby related, hoping to inspire, educate, and empower you through your journey into motherhood. Thank you for listening. Hi, I'm Deb Flashenberg. I'm your host of Yoga Birth Babies. And today we're talking about burnout, particularly mom burnout, or the person in the family that has the role of the mother. In full disclosure, here we are almost a year into this pandemic, and I'm at home with my family. 2 kids that are barely able to attend school. In fact, my daughter has been in twice for 2 days of 4 hours. My son is still completely online at home. And I've got the podcast, which I love. I've got teacher training, which I love. And I've got classes, all which I love. But it's a lot. It is a lot, and a lot falls on my shoulders. So when I first heard Diana Spalding talk about mom burnout on a different podcast, I immediately reached out to her. She and I actually did a panel at a baby show a couple years ago, so I knew her and was just delighted with her. We hung out for a bit. Let me tell you a little bit about Diana. She is a certified nurse midwife, a pediatric nurse, and a TED Talk speaker and a mom of 3. She's also Motherly's Director of Health and Wellness, and she wrote Motherly's Guide to Becoming Mama. And she's delightful. I really enjoyed our talk, and she gives really great insight into what it's like to be burnt out. And what I didn't know until I heard Diana speak the first time is that the World Health Organization actually recognizes burnout as a condition, as something that is very real. So we talk about it. We talk about changes that we can make, where society might be letting down mothers, where families need better communications. It's a really great conversation. I think you are going to enjoy it. Before we get to that, just a few little housekeeping things. If you wouldn't mind jumping to wherever you're listening to this from and leaving a rating and review, I would be so appreciative. It helps people find the podcast. And if you're listening, I hope it's because you're enjoying it and getting some benefit from it. We also have an online free guide called 5 Simple Solutions to the Most Common Pregnancy Pains. So if you head over to our website or our Instagram page, you can sign up to download that, because who doesn't want to get rid of some simple pains that a lot of pregnant bodies have? Last thing I just want to share is that we have our teacher training online. For years and years and years and years, it was 2 long weekends in New York City. And I know that prevented some people from being able to come there because it's expensive to go to New York. You have to fly or take a train or drive, find housing there. It's a lot. But now, at least for the rest of 2021, it's online. So check out our website if you are interested in deepening your knowledge about prenatal yoga. We go deep. It's a really fantastic training. We're constantly adding more and more elements to it. I'm incredibly proud of it. And then, of course, don't forget, we have all our online classes and workshops, and we keep adding to that. Okay, we're going to take a super quick break, and when we come back, please enjoy my conversation with Diana. Hi, Diana. How are you?
Hi, Deb. It's so good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh, I'm so excited. And I like to always tell the listeners a little background that you and I had met, I don't know, is it 2-3 years ago? We were doing a panel together.
Right.
That was fun. That was really fun. And I remember we hung out after, and that's what's funny earlier, Mike, it just stuck in my mind because you're a midwife, your mom's a midwife. It just seems, I was very impressed by the lineage that you came from.
The blood. Yeah, no, thank you. No, that was that was in New York, and we were in like this huge warehouse turned like baby show. And I was like, oh, look, I'm meeting all these super cool people.
Yeah. I love
so fun.
This. I know. I love talking to birth people. Like that's my jam. Like,
oh my gosh. My husband's like, who are you talking to? Oh no. It's like, so I'll see you in 2 hours. Okay.
Well, I came across, I mean, we had known, we'd met, but then I came across this conversation because I heard you on another podcast talking about mom burnout. And I'm like, oh, that's a topic. That's a big topic and a topic that I very much relate to and many others do. So I am so excited to jump into this. But I guess before we hit this topic about burnout, let's just hear a little bit about you. And also, I mean, clearly something that led you to midwifery is the fact that your mom's a midwife, but really what drew you to keep going into it?
Yeah. It's funny. I have always been a midwife. I mean, always in hindsight, but at the time I didn't realize it. So I have memories of being a 5-year-old and, instead of having like tea parties or whatever with my dolls, I would line them up on my bed and one by one I would like catch their babies. I would, push. My mom would be like, it's 10 o'clock at night. What's happening? So I've always been a little midwife, but it was always my mom's thing. So I was like, wow, that's what she does. That's not what I'm going to do. So I explored a lot of, different avenues, eventually went to nursing school, and became a pediatric nurse. I did that for a while. And then when I started to pursue my master's degree, started to pursue becoming a pediatric nurse, a pediatric nurse practitioner, took one midwifery class and I was like, oh, okay, this is what I'm supposed to do. And so, so definitely have been called to it, for a long time.
That is amazing. And again, having that in your, just like around, I wouldn't know if they had a 5-year-old know what catching babies even meant. So I love that you did. So what sparked your passion to make a change on behalf of mothers and their overburdens? Because that was something I heard you talk about in others. I believe, tell me, I might misquote you, that you want to go to your grave fighting for mothers.
Oh yeah. Thank you. That sounds right. And it's true. I didn't realize before becoming a midwife and then, certainly to another really significant degree when I became a mother myself, how unsupported mothers are in our society, how, sort of taken for granted and how little we really do to create what I call this sort of nurturing of mothers. And it became apparent to me first from a midwifery perspective, sort of that medical perspective, when I would see people during their pregnancy, during their birth, during their postpartum visits, full of worry and questions and not feeling like they could find the answers that they needed or could get people to really listen to their concerns. Then, birth and everything that comes up with birth and how we talk about birth as a society and all of that. And then certainly in the postpartum period, I think is when it really starts to, come into our consciousness, how tired we are and how hard it is and how unsupported we can feel. So I started to think like, okay, we need to do a better job as healthcare providers, as a society, as just people in supporting moms. And then I started working with Motherly, and I've been with Motherly for about 4.5 years now. And then, the pieces really started to come together because in addition to the medical parts, I was talking to psychologists and talking to our news editors and really reading all of these pieces and looking at all of the ways, that we don't support mothers. And it's pretty profound. But I also see a ton of potential, and see lots of area for improvement, which is daunting, but exciting.
I'm glad to hear that you see that place for improvement, that you don't just look at the way that society is. And we'll get deeper into this, like what as a community we can do as a society within families, changes that can be made. But I like seeing your optimism, because sometimes I look at,
yeah. It can be hard. It can be really hard, but I've realized, especially over this last year, which has been a very challenging year, how important hope is, I think, to people in general and certainly to me. And so I've realized, like, okay, I am a person who needs to have hope. And this work, that I do, needs to be based on hope. Yes, we have to spend a big chunk of the time talking about the problem, but then there's also the like, okay, so what? Like, not so what, it's not a big deal, but like, so what are we going to do about it? And that's ultimately what keeps us going, even on the really hard days when I myself am burnt out.
Yeah, because if we don't have some inkling that it can change some seed of belief, then
exactly,
what are we doing it for? And then it just becomes a big spiral. So you just mentioned burned out. You've become burned out. I've become burnt out. So something I did not know was that the World Health Organization actually recognizes burnout. Can you give that definition?
Absolutely. So the World Health Organization, it is they call it an occupational phenomenon. So right now, the World Health Organization recognizes it as something that happens to people in their occupation, people, within their careers or their work. My argument, though, and I'm not the only one, saying this, is that for many people, parenthood is a significant component of their occupation, right? Of what you do during the day, regardless of if you are, employed by a company and making money from that company, if you are a stay-at-home parent. If you are a parent, much of your work is devoted to taking care of your children. And so I think it counts as an occupation.
Yeah, so, I completely agree. I'm going to support that. I was telling my son last night and maybe this is because, we're in the middle of a pandemic and there's anxiety, but he wants to be by my side all the time. It's like 9 o'clock at night and I often read in bed and he went to read with me and I'm like, you just have to go to your room. He's like, why? But you're reading. I'm like, because I need not to be a parent right now. I'm like, I need to take that hat off because pretty much from waking until sleeping, I am a parent. I might do other things interwoven into that time, but I'm a parent. It is my first and foremost job. And there's really no walking away from that.
That's exactly it. That's exactly it. So the World Health Organization, and I'm going to read this, just to make sure that I get it right. So their definition is: burnout is a syndrome conceptualized as resulting from chronic workplace stress that has not been successfully managed. It is characterized by 3 dimensions: feelings of energy depletion or exhaustion, increased mental distance from one's job, or feelings of negativism or cynicism related to one's job, and reduced professional efficacy.
Yeah, I think parents can definitely relate. So that kind of hit some of the mental side effects and some of the physical side effects. So of course we always love our kids, but there could be wanting that distance from our kids. So what are some of the physical effects of burnout that you see in moms, and then the effects on the family? Because if the mom's burnt out, it trickles down, I'm guessing.
Absolutely. So, there are, exhaustion, fatigue, feeling touched out. When you were sharing the example of your son climbing into bed with you, that is often I adore my children, and, snuggling with them is one of the joys of my life. And there are times when I'm like, please do not touch my skin. Like, please, I love you and I just need space. Feeling exhausted, feeling overwhelmed, feeling sad, feeling underappreciated. feeling like you are not doing a good job. And I think it's tricky because I think a lot of these feelings can be normal to an extent as we transition into parenthood, especially, for any of us, at any stage of parenthood, it can be normal. But when it starts to be an overwhelming sense of these sort of negative things, that's when burnout could be happening. And burnout is, very, as you said, there's lots of mental health implications. And burnout is, very closely connected to things like depression and anxiety. And we may get into this later, but the one thing that I just want to be sure to say is that, I tell my clients and the people that I work with often that it is not your job to have to diagnose your own mental health concerns. Mm-hmm. That's why there are mental health therapists and many mental health providers. And so I always say, if you're just feeling like something is up, maybe it's burnout, maybe it's just tiredness, maybe it's depression, maybe it's anxiety, maybe it's something that, you've not heard of yet. Your only job is to get yourself in front of a mental health provider, and then they can help you sort it out. One of the things that I think leads to, struggles in motherhood and parenthood is that we accept it because our society has taught us that it is normal. Oh yeah, you're a new mom. It's exhausting. You'll sleep again and you'll feel better. Oh yeah, that preschool, that's a hard time. Oh yeah, elementary school, that's hard. And we kind of keep kicking the can down the road and dismissing things that, maybe they are normal, but also maybe they're not. So that is one of the huge pieces of this is I think we as a society need to do a better job of continuing to reduce the stigma around mental health and encouraging people to seek mental health. I often say, we go to the dentist twice a year. We go to our primary care physician or nurse practitioner at least once a year. We go to the dermatologist. We can go to a mental health provider, even if it's just for a checkup, right?
That is
even if
so smart. I don't think, and I talked to a lot of people and I've been doing this for 5 years. I don't think I've ever heard someone compare it that way.
Oh.
Saying, you go to the dentist, you get, you do your checkups, you do whatever, and mental health check-in with a therapist of some sort. How are you? And you're so right that it is so normalized. Oh, of course, you're tired, new parent, right. Learning this, learning it. And you have this. I haven't framed it in that way that we need to check in and see what's normal. When are we hitting a point where we've just told ourselves it's normal, but maybe it's not?
Yeah, I really think so. And I think also remembering that, you don't have to have a quote diagnosis to go to a mental health provider, because all of us get stressed. All of us get sad. All of us get worried. Wouldn't it be wonderful to have coping skills, developed with the help of a mental health provider for when those happen, Mm-hmm. So I think really normalizing mental health care can be really important. So I know I sort of derailed us there, but I always want to say, because it's a fuzzy line between, is it quote just burnout, which it's certainly more than a just, and is it something that really needs to be evaluated?
No, I'm glad that you did go there. Yeah, it's a little off where we're heading, but it's so important. Let's just hit that on the head again. Normalizing mental health care is just so important. So why do you think the needs of mothers has become a bit, I hate to use the word, but maybe it's how I often feel, a little unimportant? I feel that way.
Oh gosh, I think that, a lot of it has to do with the patriarchy, and, sexism and misogyny and all of that. And this idea that, first of all, the act of caretaking is not probably valued as much as it should be. And certainly this day and age, all parents, many parents, are involved in the caretaking of children. But historically, for the last hundreds of years, it has been primarily the responsibility of women. And so the sort of patriarchal views in combination with this idea that caretaking is not necessarily important, have sort of diminished it as work. It's kind of like what it's expected. That's what you do. You're the mother. Of course, that's
you make
what
the
you
appointments,
do.
you plan the birthday parties, you plan the play dates, you
Exactly.
do you make sure the bags are packed, you get the camp going. Yeah.
Yep. All of that stuff. And it's so interesting because I don't think that it's just, I'll speak for myself. Like it's not just men. I do it to myself. I have absorbed so deeply this notion that certain things are my responsibility as the person who identifies as the mother, that like my husband is an incredibly equal partner, wants to help, wants to do more, all of that stuff. And I'm like, no. I got it. I'm like, no, I really don't want to pack the backpacks. Like that would be great. So I think it's shifting the cultural perspective for everybody. It's not just like bashing our partners necessarily.
I think also, and this is a little bit off topic, it could also be, control issues. I've had that conversation with some mental health care providers about letting go of control and being like, you could do it, but I'll probably do it better. So I might as well just do it.
Yeah. I identify with that a lot. And have also spoken to mental health providers who have said like, remember, like there are more than one way to do things. And, your husband's way, just in my case, my husband's way, like might be equally as valid. And even if it's not, even if my way is better, what's the big deal? It doesn't, you don't have to control everything. It doesn't have to be perfect. The backpack can be a little messy, like whatever it is. And that is it's a hard thing to learn, but it's such a burden lifted. It feels like such a small thing, but I think you're totally right. When you can sort of release some of that control, it feels great. It feels great to like not care as much about.
I'm working on it.
Things.
I'm not there, because when you said it's okay for the backpack to be messy, in my brain, I'm like, is it? But so.
Yeah, but then the water bottle spills and then I got to be the one to do the thing. And I know.
But I do think that you did hit something about the sexism. And I think some of it is subconscious. And like, I just look at the way, and again, I'm not trying to bash like my in-laws or my husband, because I think they're awesome, but there's certain generational sexism. So like, my mother-in-law was brought up, in the, I guess the 50s. I actually never really thought when she was brought up, 50s and 60s. And there was certain, response. I remember her telling me that she was going to college to get her MRS. And at first I'm like, what's that? And I'm like, oh, I get it. Okay. Literally, I'm like, it's like a BFA, like, and so
masters in renovation. Yeah.
And so but that was like a generational thing. And so her generation was like, the mother does this. And so she brought my husband up like, oh, just leave all your dishes at the table. I'll take care of it. And so now I'm like, no, we're not going to do that. So we're trying to teach our kids, no, that's not what we do, to change some of this sexism that's baked into societal thinking. So we're trying to set, I guess societal thinking is another conversation we can have too. In fact, let's talk about that. What are ways in which you think society has let mothers down?
Oh gosh. Well, I mean, there are, the sort of infrastructure problems that I think are a huge issue. One of, the most important to really talk about is racism, right? And all of the ways that racism has sort of infiltrated our system, and our system has been built on. And so, for so many mothers, not only are they dealing with the burnout of motherhood, but they're dealing with the impacts of systemic racism and everything that entails. So that I think is a huge piece. There's also the lack of paid maternity leave, or paid parental leave, really, at the national level. And I think more than just having, 12 weeks of paid time with your child, like that in and of itself is super important. But I think it's the messaging that comes with that. It's this idea that like, oh, you are creating, new life and new people, or, thanks so much for doing that. But it's not actually that important. It's not important or hard enough that it warrants you getting a few weeks off to recover, or to bond, or to feed, or to take care of that baby or yourself. And so with all of these things, there's again the sort of physical thing, and then there's the implication. And then I think, the way, all the ways that women experience inequalities, the pay gap, the hiring, consequences of, letting they've done studies, and they found that when women indicate that they have a child on their resume, they're significantly less likely to get called for the interview. Mm-hmm. So all of these, there's these ideas that women, and this is all just, career related, that mothers are not efficient, are not good workers, when actually the research has found exactly the opposite. So I think that's a big piece of it. I think, as a society, we are pretty attentive, though certainly could do better, again, especially when it comes to BIPOC women, at paying attention to pregnant people. We fawn over pregnant people, and we're, oh, you're glowing and look at your belly and blah, 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 blah. And then the baby comes out and it's like, see you later. Good luck. There's so little attention paid from the medical community and from us in general, to people after they give birth or after they have adopted. And we sort of get over that, like adrenaline of, oh, yay, there's a new baby. So things like that again, the physical implications are significant, but the why behind them, are as well.
Something I thought was really interesting. I did, a podcast on this couple years ago, that the highest incidence of maternal mortality is within the first 42 days after the baby's born. But for the majority of people that just had their babies, they're not seeing their care provider until 42 days after they've had their baby. I know I had a midwife, so that might have been why things were a little different. She did check in with me every day for, I think, 2 weeks.
Oh, that's awesome.
It was a home birth midwife. She was really special.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And when, it was really awesome. Yeah, and then, so we had those check in for 2 weeks, and sometimes it was just like leaving a message like, I'm okay, all good. And then I saw her again at 6 weeks, but it surprises me. I just feel like we've really, the healthcare system, that can go a whole nother topic, but really, really not supporting the new parent. Like the pregnant person seeing the care provider once a week up, for the last month. And then all of a sudden we're like, peace out, had your baby, see you in 6 weeks. It just seems a little insane not to then put a little focus on like, how are you? How are you transitioning? How is your body? What I didn't know is that my pediatrician told me this later, is when we were coming in for the first few weeks, you're there a lot, or at least we were there a lot. And she would have me hang out. She'd be like, oh, let me watch you, latch. And what she was doing was screening me for postpartum depression. I had no idea. She told me that later. I'm like, oh, that's so smart. And I love the idea that pediatricians may be doing that, because they're likely the ones seeing the new parent far more than the midwife or OBGYN.
Right. I love that. And I love, this notion of it being a team effort, because again, this is a whole other conversation, but the healthcare system is like total, especially right now, is totally overburdened.
It's got some problems.
And, we've got like a couple things happening. And so, I like the idea of it. Certainly obstetric providers, we need to do a better job, but also recognizing that like, why can't your dentist screen you for postpartum depression? Certainly the pediatrician who you're seeing, sort of making sure that we're all kind of in this together. I think you're absolutely right.
Yeah, team effort. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about your TED Talk. It will also just mention how great your outfit was on your TED Talk. Okay. So I had to get that in. All right, we'll be right back.
Swimsuit? Check. Sunscreen? Check. Phone charger? Check. Don't forget to pack the 5-Hour Energy. It fits great in a pocket or carry-on, and the alert feeling will help you arrive ready for anything. Now get 20% off when you use code 5HETRAVEL at 5hourenergy.com. Expires April 30th. One-time use only. Not valid with other discounts. Remember, visit 5hourenergy.com and use code 5HETRAVEL to save 20%. Looks like you need a vacation. Enter the 5-Hour Energy Where Will the Tide Take You sweepstakes. You could win a $10,000 dream beach vacation. Imagine jet setting off to a tropical paradise, having fun in the sun, or diving at a gorgeous reef. It's up to you. No purchase necessary. Go to 5HETide.com for official rules and to enter. That's 5HETide.com. Enter today. Ends June 30th, 2024.
Okay, we are back. No, I won't have a whole conversation about your outfit, but people, if you go watch it, you will notice Diana looks pretty awesome. All right.
Thank you. I agonized over that. They tell you, insider tip, they tell you not to wear, well, they don't tell you what not to anything, but somewhere I read, like, maybe don't wear black. And so I tried every color of the rainbow. And finally I was like, sorry guys, this is my power color. Like I'm wearing black from head to
you
toe.
look pretty great. I hope you still wear that at times. I don't know when now during COVID, but every now and then, if you feel like you need to feel good about yourself, just strut around the house.
I hadn't considered it. I may or may not have a birthday coming up. And I think you've just helped me figure out how I'm going to dress myself that day. Yeah.
So it was a really, really good talk. And you give some astonishing information about, let me see if I wrote some notes. I wanted to make sure I asked, can you give the astonishing quote as to how many mothers feel unsupported? Do you have that with you?
I do. And it's actually even more astonishing now. So in the TEDx talk, it was 85%. And this comes, side note, from Motherly's State of Motherhood survey, that we do every year. And we send, and we're actually, getting ready to do the 2021 one. And we send out, a bunch of questions to moms all over the country and try to get a sense of what's going on. So those stats came from 2019. In 2020, it was up to 89%. So 89% of mothers in our society do not feel that our society is doing a good job supporting them.
Let's talk about that. What are ways in the U.S. that people are feeling supported, I guess, or they're not feeling supported in their pregnancy and in their fourth trimester compared to other countries? That's what I find really interesting. Like we put ourselves like, oh, America's so great, but are we? I don't know. That might make me sound really, no, maybe a tree.
We have a lot of work to do. We have a lot of work to do.
On so many levels.
So many levels. I think that there are, again, infrastructure, things in place in most other countries in the world where they have paid parental leave. And in some countries, like significant paid parental leave. And if the new parent is partnered, that parent can often share that parental leave with their co-parent, with their partner. And you're allowed to figure it out in the way that works best for you. So, we get, I'm making this, we get 60 weeks between the two of us. How do we want to spend? But I'll take 40 and you take 20, or we'll take 30 each together. I mean, pretty significant. And again, I just think that creates this culture of you are important and the work that you are doing is important. And when you feel important and valued, it's kind of amazing how everything else just feels better, right? When you feel like your society cares about you, when you feel like you have a voice, it makes a huge difference. And I think we're missing that.
I also think about just the physical not side effects, just after effects of giving birth. And if you don't have time off to heal, and I remember, I worked myself, so I kind of went back pretty quickly, cause there's no pay. I pay myself. So I didn't have that much time. But I did have enough time to at least let my bleeding stop. But I can imagine that if someone's in a situation where they can't afford 10, 12 weeks off of receiving a paycheck and their employer is not offering it to them, going back 2-3 weeks later and they're still bleeding. If they're nursing, they might not have established, healthy breastfeeding between the child. It just seems, and then what kind of mental fog is someone in then showing up for work? It just, we're not supporting the worker. It's just like the whole thing trickles down to a big hot mess.
It does. I mean, big hot mess, I think is accurate. And I think that only, fairly recently are people really starting to talk about it, which is great. Cause I think, I've heard people say like, yeah, but you're just complaining a whole bunch. I'm like, well, yes. And we need to identify the problem, and I think that is one of the things that does give me hope is that even, over the course of my adult life, I have seen this become more and more of a topic of conversation, which is really important because I think that means that we start to hold our elected officials accountable and our partners accountable and ourselves accountable and all of that. But the first step is sort of recognizing that like, hey, wait a second, this is a hot mess. And we need to start having these deep conversations.
And then it's also looking at, I did so much my knowledge comes from my conversations on podcasts, but I did one with one of our community members who is Chinese. And she was saying that part of her culture was a 40-day, I think she was calling it a 40-day lie-in, where it was about her healing. That was built into the culture. Yep. And she had a postpartum doula that was also from the Chinese culture and had different herbs and just really respected and held that time for her. And I know that's not just that culture. There's many other cultures that do that. It makes me sad that we don't have an embracing of that fourth trimester, of revering that threshold that was passed to become a parent, not just the mental, but the physical, all of it. It's just like, how quickly can you bounce back? How, like the baby's an accessory, you know what I mean?
Yes, it's so true. It's so true. And bounce back. Gosh, that phrase really it hurts me. Yeah, it irks me. It hurts me. But I also resonated with it because when I had my first kid, I have 3 kids and each one of them, I was like, God, I just want like my body back. So I get that aspect, but this idea that like, okay, you've had a baby, boom, it's time to lose the weight, get into your skinny jeans, be out and about, write the thank you notes, do the all of those things, as opposed to like, oh my gosh, you just did what? Like what did you just do? A human being just came out of your body. And again, I think that this applies to parents, who go through the adoption process as well. That is not an easy, process in any way, shape or form. It's incredibly stressful. And so a lot of this information, especially the mental aspects, apply there as well, that like, whoa, it's okay to keep the house messy and it's okay to keep the phone off the hook. Did I just date myself? Oh gosh. to not answer the phone. It's okay to stay in bed. It's okay to eat like deliciously nourishing food. And some of that food should definitely be ice cream. How can we change the way that we talk about our expectations of women and new parents so that slowly but surely we start to be more gentle on ourselves?
That kind of brings me into the talk about self-care. And I know it's such a buzzword and it kind of annoys me, but there is something, and yet I still use it. There is something about caring for ourselves and the need for support and support from family. Can you talk a little bit more about the support that you would like to see that could heal modern motherhood, that we need to make big societal changes within the family, changes in the community? How can we elevate the mother?
Yes, I love this. And this is an ongoing question that I am continuing to learn about. But I think a lot of it starts with ourselves. And that's like not always my favorite answer when I hear it, because I'm like, I don't want to start with myself, but we have to start with ourselves. But really figuring out all of the ways that we can be gentle with ourselves. I, since starting to do all this work with burnout, spend a lot of time thinking about my own burnout and thinking about like just kind of listening to sort of that inner dialogue, and I don't talk very nicely to myself, that sort of like inner critic, right? That I think a lot of us have. How can we continue to change the way that we talk to ourselves and think about ourselves? Because then once we're thinking about ourselves in a more loving way, and please, easier said than done, it can become a little bit easier to set up those boundaries and set up those guardrails.
Boundaries.
And to say
okay.
boundaries. Yeah. And to say, to your, in-laws, actually, we want to have a couple weeks alone with the baby before we have a visitor come over. Or actually, I'd rather not have my, cousin's babysitter's best friend at the birth. That doesn't feel comfortable to me. So really getting clear on what are your values and where do you draw the line, can help. And it takes practice. I am learning every day. So I think that is a big piece of it. And then I think, one of the things that is really missing, especially right now, is the village. Humans are social creatures. We are, sort of evolutionarily designed to be together and to help each other, especially when it comes to raising children. And as a society, we have sort of moved away from that for a variety of reasons. And then certainly with the pandemic, we feel very alone and isolated often. And I think that has a big impact. So I always say, like, your friend that had a baby 3.5 weeks ago, she could really use a phone call right now, because everyone called her in that first week and a few people called her in that second week. Not a lot of people are calling her in week 3. Not a lot of people are bringing a lasagna. Not a lot of people. And again, it's a lot more than that lasagna. It's hey, I was thinking about you. You're really important. I want to do something to show you that I care. And I think that those are really important gestures that are not to be overlooked, even though they feel small.
Because everyone wants to be seen.
Yes.
Especially a new parent, where they feel drowning. Men, I shouldn't say everyone. Most feel drowning.
Yes. Yeah, I think so. And I think, one of the sort of trends on social media that I'm seeing that I really appreciate, and I have very mixed feelings about social media in general, but one of the things that I love is people feeling more comfortable being vulnerable. And certainly this is not for everyone, and people are under no expectations to like be vulnerable if they don't want to be. But when people are willing to, talk about their struggles with postpartum depression, or say like, hey, look at my stretch marks, or, today was a really hard day in motherhood, or look at my incredibly messy house. All of those things, I think that goes back to humans being sort of thriving on connection. And even when we can't be around each other, seeing other mothers and parents struggling, there's a real unity there, as opposed to feeling like you have to fit into this sort of societal construct that was created before we were born and really doesn't fit.
You said something in your talk that really hit home for me. You gave this image of a toddler having, I don't know if it's a toddler, but it was, in my mind, it was a child having a tantrum, which I can understand. And that someone just acknowledging how hard that must be, and just some camaraderie, and be like, it happens. Instead of, I know when my kids ever have tantrums, usually my son, I immediately go to, I feel like eyes are on me and they're judging me and I'm the bad mom. But to have someone be like, you're doing a great job. This is really hard. Keep it up. Because I feel like part of that burnout is not judging each other and not trying to be the best mom and do it all and have the clean house and have all the vegetables. And it feels a little competitive.
It does. Yeah.
What are your thoughts on how do we take the competition out of motherhood? And you were starting to talk about be vulnerable, but not be ashamed or hide from what our struggles are.
Yeah. I mean, I think that it's going to look different for everyone. One of the things that I have learned about myself as a mother, for example, is that I am very bad at playing. I do not play right. I am not fun, apparently. I do not.
Told you by your kids.
Build the Legos correctly, apparently. And I felt so much guilt about that. And I'm going to be honest, I love spending time with my children, but I'm not, at the end of the day, I'm not always super in the mood to quote play. I just kind of want to be with them. And I felt such overwhelming guilt about that for a really long time. But then, over the course of growing into motherhood, something I'm still doing and will do forever, is realizing okay, yeah, I'm not great at playing, but I am great at birthdays. And if my kid is sick, forget it. I got that. I got you. And that's okay. That's okay to be a human, and it's okay to have aspects of motherhood that you don't like and aspects of motherhood that you really love. And I think the more that we can share these stories, the more helpful it is. And you start to realize that my best friend hates throwing birthday parties, and when her kid is sick, her partner is the one that comes in and really is the super parent, but she's so fun and she's so good at playing with the kid. And that's all okay. And that there isn't one type of mother that is worthy, that you are allowed to be a human, be who you are, and also be a person's mother. And that's not only that's okay, that's awesome, because how boring would it be if every single one of our mothers was totally the same, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Be authentic to who we are and show up. And I always go back to thinking that just teaches our kids to be authentic to who they are.
Yes. Oh. Yes, absolutely. And I think that, also goes back to the self-care piece. I think I and a lot of moms that I talk to feel a lot of guilt around the sort of self-care, or taking time for ourselves or making ourselves happy, all of that. But I often go back to, and I have to remind myself of this, I am setting up a good example. So when I say to my son, no, mommy can't come right now. Mommy's going to spend a few minutes taking care of herself, or mommy's going to go spend time with her friends, or mommy's going to go to bed early because she's really tired. What a great example that is to show our children that it's okay to, again, set those boundaries and politely but firmly say what we need.
Yeah. Oh, I totally agree. My latest thing with my kids is mommy's not your waitress.
Oh, yes.
That's a big one in our house. Mommy's not here to
and having been a waitress for many years, that resonates. That resonates.
There was one day that everyone left their plates on the table and then went upstairs, and I ran upstairs and got my husband and my kids. And I'm like, get down there. You put your own dishes away. And I'm like, I don't know what you're thinking, but that is so not going to run in this house.
It's so true. It's so true. And we're also not doing them any favors by once in a while, okay, whatever. But they need to learn, they need to learn that they have to take care of themselves and all of that. So I'm totally with you.
Hopefully those kids are going to be out of the house someday and they have to clean their own table.
Right.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, what is one final tip or piece of advice you would like to offer new and expectant parents? And this can come from anything. You have been a midwife. I mean, you have a lot of information in your mind. So pick one thing that pops out. We'll be right back.
Swimsuit? Check. Sunscreen? Check. Phone charger? Check. Don't forget to pack the 5-Hour Energy. It fits great in a pocket or carry-on, and the alert feeling will help you arrive ready for anything. Now get 20% off when you use code 5HETRAVEL at 5hourenergy.com. Expires April 30th. One-time use only. Not valid with other discounts. Remember, visit 5hourenergy.com and use code 5HETRAVEL to save 20%.
All right. I know I totally threw this at you. What's percolating?
Okay. Well, so what's percolating was actually inspired by something that you said. So I am going to tell a quick anecdote if that's okay.
Yes.
I had just had my third. So my kids, my first two are 3 years apart and my second and my third are 15 months apart. So yeah, happens to midwives too. And so my preschooler was in preschool and I was at some like little gym class with the toddler and I was leaving. So I had the toddler in one hand and the baby in the car seat in the bassinet. And we're walking out and the toddler slips out of my hand and makes a beeline for the parking lot, just starts running. I, like, all maternal instincts, like lunge for him, grab his shirt or something just before he goes out into the parking lot, fall down onto my knees, scrape my knees. The kids were okay. The baby in the car seat was fine. I didn't, and all of this, I didn't drop the car seat, which is like shocking to me, but my knees are scraped and bleeding, which PS, as a grown up having scraped knees is really painful. Forgotten. So, and I just started, I'm on the sidewalk. All these people are coming out of this class. My knees are bleeding and I'm just crying. And this woman came up to me and she put her hand on my back and she said, "You're not doing it wrong. It's just that hard." And then I cried more. And I don't know who she was. I have totally lost contact with her. I want to find her one day because that one phrase has really carried me through parenthood. There's this idea, I had this idea that, anytime that something was going wrong or was challenging or, anything in parenthood, that it was because I was doing it wrong. Because obviously I wasn't a good enough mother. And obviously, I was letting people down. And I think sometimes it's okay to just acknowledge like, this is just hard. And anything you would do right now would not really work or feel right or feel. And again, that's such a release of a burden. So anyway, all of that is to the long-winded answer to your question, which is to remind yourself that you're not doing it wrong. Sometimes it's just that hard. And that's okay. And that is not a reflection of you as a mother or a parent.
I really like that. Oh, you've given such good tips. I think my number one takeaway is having help, finding that support, but really the one that I can't get over, I hadn't heard before, is the twice a year mental checkup. That just blows my mind away. So I wanted to put that out there as just highlighting that. That means a lot because mothers tend to put themselves last. I know that I'm so great at making my doctor's appointments for my kids and haircuts for my kids and blah, blah, blah for my kids. And when do I do these things for myself? I'm so it could be 2 years before I have a checkup. And I need to make sure that I take care of myself too. And that just really, really resonates with me. So I just want to highlight that again. That means so much. So
well, thank you. I'm glad. And right now when everything is virtual, it's even easier,
That's true.
It's even easier to I just got to go Zoom with my therapist real quick,
I like that idea.
Yeah.
Where can people find your work?
Yeah. So, I am the director of health and wellness at Motherly. So they can come to Motherly and find lots of articles, including one entitled "You're Not Doing It Wrong. It's Just That Hard." So that's mother.ly and there's lots of stuff on there, of course. I also, published a book back in April and it's called The Motherly Guide to Becoming Mama. So for anybody that is thinking about trying to get pregnant or is already pregnant, or in the fourth trimester, that book is there. And then certainly there, Motherly is all over, social media and we'd love to see you on Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn and Pinterest and all those great places.
Oh, amazing. Thank you. And I'm so glad that we got to connect again. I really appreciate this.
I am too. I'm so grateful that you reached out. This has been such a great conversation. And I look forward to us continuing to find lots of ways to be able to continue to connect.
That would be wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
This has been an episode of Yoga Birth Babies, produced by Prenatal Yoga Center. You can catch us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Periscope. I'm Deb Flaschenberg. Thanks for listening.